I love all the positive energy, though, in the room. This is great. So welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Couri, and welcome to our second cooking class of the season. We're so appreciative that all of you came out to be with us this evening. We love to share our passion for using good, healthy food as part of our medical toolbox. So that's integral in our practice and what we talk to patients about. That's the framework from which we build on everything, is basically how food talks to our body, how food talks to our genes and turns genes on and turns genes off. So in that spirit, we're going to continue on with that theme, and tonight our topic is the healing power of herbs. So for those of you who have never been to our class, we want to welcome you, and hopefully we want you to feel comfortable and ask any questions that you may have. Make this your home. For those of you who have come back as a repeat student, we thank you very much. We will be donating the monies earned tonight to medical charity, and tonight the charity that we've picked is St. Jude, so all the money that we raise will go to St. Jude. So I just again want to reiterate that we're going to talk about herbs, but you guys can feel free to ask any questions that's on your minds. Don't be shy. I'm fascinated by herbs for many reasons. Not only do they make the flavors in our food come alive, but they also have very ancient healing powers, and that's what I'm intrigued with. I love using herbs in my medical practice just like I would use a prescription medication. I respect herbs just like I respect a prescription drug. And so when I talk to patients about what we can use for whatever problem that they may be coming to see me about, not only do I think about a prescription drug, but first and foremost, I would also think about how we can safely use herbs if possible. So I can't imagine not being able to turn towards chamomile for soothing my child's upset tummy, or talking to a patient about turmeric if they have arthritis, or talking to someone about valerian root or passion flower if they have anxiety. So we use herbs in a variety of ways, but tonight we're not going to really focus on the pharmaceutical aspects, or at least I'm not, Jan maybe, but we're going to talk more about the culinary properties of herbs and what they can bring to us. So tonight we have the distinct privilege of having Jan Powers as our guest, and Jan is just an amazing woman. As I read her bio, I was definitely in awe, and I'm so grateful that she's willing to come here tonight and share her time and her knowledge with us. We also have Dr. Melissa Young, and Dr. Young has joined our practice, and she specializes in integrative medicine. She is board certified in internal medicine, and she completed her fellowship in integrative medicine at the Arizona Center for Integrative Medicine under the direction of Dr. Andrew Weil. So I'm very grateful to have such a wonderful cohort as Dr. Young. She's also going to be a part of tonight's presentation. And then, as always, I want to thank our dedicated staff for all of their selfless efforts in making these classes possible. I absolutely would be nowhere without all of them. They give of their time in an amazing way. And I also want to thank Sid. She's not here tonight, but she's been with us on our last few cooking classes. Sid prepared all the food for you, so in your bags tonight you'll get to have some of the recipes that we're sharing with you. You'll get to see what she's cooked, and it's very good. So the recipes tonight are quinoa tabbouleh and vegan basil pesto, and we're going to actually be demonstrating how to make the pesto tonight. And I also want to support our local vendors and farmers. Without them, again, the point of this cooking class would be not near as well driven home, because our goal also is to support our local farmers and support our local agriculture. And so we have Garden Spot Vegetable Farms and L&L Produce outside. So feel free, they've been gracious enough to bring their produce and share with us. So feel free to stop by their tables and buy. And then we also have Norwex personal care products that are made with organic ingredients. We also have Salad Master pots and pans with us. And Brett, I was just talking to Brett from Salad Master, which I think is an amazing company, but he also told me that he has fresh homemade honey here tonight. So if anyone is interested in that, stop by the Salad Master table. So I want to just give a wonderful introduction to Jan. Jan Powers is a garden writer, lecturer, designer, and gardener. She's been involved in the world of herbs and gardening for over 30 years. So it was a no-brainer when Teresa, my nurse, and I were sitting around trying to figure out who we would like to have come and speak at our class. When we thought about the herb topic, Jan was the first person that we thought of. She's a founding member and past president of the Peoria Herb Guild, a member of the Herb Society of America, the Central Illinois Hosta Society, the Beatrix Potter Society, and the Garden Writers Association. She's a volunteer at the Luthi Botanical Gardens, where she coordinates the development of the herb gardens. She was a contributing editor, the author of Herb Time in the Peoria Journal-Star, and has contributed articles for the Herb Companion, which we are going to be giving. One of our gifts tonight, one of our giveaways is a subscription to that magazine, which is wonderful. She also has contributed articles to Herbal Treasures and the Herb Quarterly. Her work and her gardens have been featured in Midwest Living, Victorian Homes, Country Samplers Decorating Ideas, Victoria Family Circle, and Mary Engelbright's Home Companion. Jan worked for Greenview Nursery for 10 years as a buyer, designer, and visual merchandiser. She formerly owned and operated Stonewell Herbs, which is an herb and garden shop. Stonewell Herbs evolved into a mail-order business featuring Jan's stencil and rubber stamp designs, all inspired by her garden. And in your bag, she was kind enough to bring a beautiful drawing that she did of an herb garden. So it's very inspiring. She is now working as a freelance garden writer, illustrator, blogger, and lecturer. So without any further ado, I am very grateful to have Jan with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was interesting. I forgot about all those things. Well, over the course of a long life, you do get involved in a lot of things, and the list gets longer as you get older. So thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here, and this is really an exciting thing for me. I see a lot of familiar faces out there, and some not familiar, and that's a great combination no matter where I go. So we're going to talk tonight about culinary herbs mostly, because when you get into the subject of herbs, at least when I do, I find that I don't have just like one area that I like to specialize in. I'm interested in all of it. So I really get carried away with, the fragrance part of herbs. The historical herbs are fabulous. The history through the ages, and of course the historical uses of herbs, which you get into the medicinal. And but in order to use herbs, someone has to grow them. So we're going to talk about maybe, all of us growing our own herbs, and that's the best way to do it. Farmers markets are fabulous, and we have so many wonderful ones in the area now. I love that. And there are a lot of herbs at the farmers market, so that's a good thing to do too. But I think that, for one thing, anyone can grow herbs. They're a very, very easy thing to grow. And also, you can grow them pretty much in any circumstance, whether you have a large amount of garden or a large amount of land, or whether you just have maybe a deck or a patio, a small place where you could do herbs in containers. So there's just so many ways you can grow them. And how many of you grow herbs now? Raise your hand. Oh, wow, a lot of you, great, okay. How many of you have never grown an herb in your life? Anybody? Ooh, okay. Oh, okay, great. Well, that's gonna change, I'm quite sure, right? The thing that, this time of the year, of course, when you're growing herbs, you can go to the grocery store any time of the year and you can buy those little glass bottles, and they have that dried stuff in them, and it doesn't look very appetizing usually, and that's what I used to use for years until I started growing my own. And then I was amazed at the difference when the herbs weren't like 20 years old. I honestly wonder how old some of those herbs are. And when you buy them in the store, I will tell you, and I always tell people, never keep them longer than a year. Well, how many of you have anything older than a year in your cupboard right now? Anybody? I thought so. I mean, a year goes by pretty quickly, right? I know. So this is a great time to grow herbs. It's summer, it's warm. Many herbs, most herbs are Mediterranean in origin. They love the hot summers. They also like very poor soil. Many herbs like to grow in rocky, sandy, poor soil. And they don't need a lot of fertilizer or rich soil. So that's one other easy thing about them. There are two kinds. There are annual herbs and there are perennial herbs. And you really, if you want to do culinary herbs, if you want to grow herbs to cook with, you're going to want to grow both kinds. You're going to want to have both kinds. Because some of the ones that, I mean, perennial sounds great to some people because they come back every year. But there are certain herbs that are just so you can't live without, such as basil, and dill, and so many others that are annual that you just have to have in that mix. So, does anybody here grow herbs only in containers? Okay, great. I spoke with someone just not too long ago that said they were growing them in containers, and there's a lot of benefits to that. But I think if you really, once you get started and realize how much fun this is and how great it is to cook with these herbs, you'll probably end up growing them in containers and in your garden, because the key to growing herbs to cook with fresh is having them handy. I mean, if they're way out somewhere around the corner where you can't see them, you're probably not going to be as likely to go on the spur of the moment and snip some and bring when you're in the middle of cooking dinner and bring them in. And to me, that's the best way to use herbs, is not so much this time of year as putting them into something and simmering them a long time and cooking them, but to the very end of when you're all set to eat, then you go snip the fresh herbs and just sprinkle them on top, and then you get the best flavor in the summer, and you don't want to give that up. But if you want to grow them in containers, that's a great thing to do, especially the annuals, maybe like basil. However, there are some herbs that might get a little large, so unless you have really large containers, you might not want to do that. But they're beautiful, and there's a handout in your, and you don't look now because I'm going to talk about this, but you can take this home with you. There's a handout in there called Herbs in Containers, and I kind of give you a list of some suitable ones. This is, as lists go, whenever I'm doing a talk, trust me, they're always, this is just a start. I mean, the list could go on and on. But I never like to overwhelm people, and, we only have so much time to talk too. But I want to talk a little bit about containers in that if you like, you can grow herbs in combination with other things in containers, which is really fun to do. Everybody likes color. We all want color in our garden, color in our containers. And herbs are not really grown for their flowers. Now, there's a few exceptions to that. Chives, of course, are, I've got some chive blossoms here. They have beautiful flowers, and many of the herbs do. But primarily, we grow them to use the leaves when you're using them fresh. And usually not even the stems of most of them, because they're usually, not as palatable as the leaves are. But the oils, the essential oils which are in the leaves and in the flowers too, are what give herbs their flavor. And one of the things I did today when I went out to pick some groups, because I wanted to show you some blends I have here, is I did what I tell people never to do. And that's never go out in the middle of a hot day and pick a bouquet. Because it won't recover for a while. So you can see the dill. It's just kind of like, oh, why did she pick me so late? but by tomorrow it'll be perked up and it'll be fine, But you want to pick herbs in the morning after the dew is dried, because you don't want them to be wet. And a thing I like to do when I go out and pick herbs in the summer is I just pick a bouquet every day and put it on my windowsill or on my counter in my kitchen of just a variety. Just go out and just pick whatever you want, make a beautiful bouquet of the green herbs, put it in your kitchen, and then it's right there. If you want to snip a few pieces of basil, it's there. If you want to, sprinkle some thyme at the last minute, it's there. And it's really very, very attractive. And I would say that it would last in a container of water, probably for 2 days anyway, at least. So it's really nice to do. It's also fun if you're having, even if you're not having guests, for yourself, to put that on the table when you're eating, and put a little pair of culinary scissors next to it. And if not everybody likes the same herbs, and you can just say, okay, here they are. Anybody want to snip? You can pass it around, and you can do your own little thing, which is really fun. So that's another good idea. Also, a favorite thing in the summertime for me is I drink a lot of water. And one of the things I've been doing, and I brought some with me, although they can't see it because it just looks like water if you just look at this, but I've been keeping a big plastic pitcher of water in my refrigerator. And every morning I go out and I pick lemon balm, mint, maybe basil, thyme, and then slice up some lemons and limes and just fill it full of all these herbs and fruit and then cover that with water and put it in the fridge. And then for a couple days, whenever I want a really refreshing drink of water, I just take it out and put it over some ice. And as the water goes, you can add more. You know, the herbs will probably last for at least 2 days. So it's just nice to have that refreshing drink of water always at hand, you know, and especially if you use, you know, nice pure water, you know, with your herbs, it's really great. So you'll find that people will open the fridge and look in there and go, ooh, that looks good, you know. And then you go, it is good, try it. So I encourage you to do that. And that's like what I said, those are the things you can't do unless you've got your own herbs, you know, all this fun stuff that you can do. And also I'm going to talk a little bit now about, there is a handout in your little nice little shopping bag there. And I'm working on a book. I've been saying that for way too long. I mean, people probably think, yeah, right, sure she is. But I really think I'll finish it someday. And what it is theme gardens, you know, different kinds of gardens for different kinds of uses of herbs. And I have done that for so many years. I don't anymore because I've simplified my gardening. But through the years, I have done theme gardens, small little areas, really for the fun of it, and because it's a learning experience. And that way you get to learn the uses for that particular kind of herbs. But this is one of the ones that's going to go in my book, actually, if I ever finish it. And I'm calling it a cook's garden because I wanted to talk about what we're doing tonight. And I put a list here of probably a pretty good size list of herbs to grow if you want to cook with herbs. And what I did for you is, in addition to a common name, and I want to tell you this because common names of any plant, whether it's an herb or a perennial or an annual or anything, even trees, it's really important to know the Latin name if you want to be sure you're getting what you want to get. You know, things can be mislabeled, and I know that it's not a stuffy thing, and it's not actually it's kind of fun to look at the Latin names because it's fun to figure out where maybe it's not fun for you, but I took Latin a long time ago and swore I would never need it, and all of a sudden, guess what? I need it. And it's great to figure out what those little Latin words mean. So I did give you the Latin words. It's also important if you're ordering maybe from a mail order source, you know, that you make sure you're getting what you want by making sure that you have the Latin name and the common name. With culinary herbs, it's more of a simple thing, and they're so much more widely available than some of the other herbs. I think probably here in Peoria, I mean, I don't know, have all of you shopped for herbs already this year? How many of you have shopped for herbs? Okay. It's, you know, you can get them pretty much anywhere. And actually, I just kind of go everywhere I can think of and, you know, just pick from all the different places the best things. And I just recently went and bought some more herbs, they must have got their second shipment in. And you can see that what I did is I brought a little, I guess a collection. I'm going to try and walk over here. Can you all hear me okay? Okay. And this was what I picked out, say, you know, for the best culinary herbs. And what I have in here is basil, of course, which you're going to use for the pesto tonight, and thyme. And when you get with some of these herbs, such as basil, there isn't just one basil. There's lots of basils. There's cinnamon basil. There's dark opal basil. There's Thai basil. There's ruffled basil. There's bush basil. And many more. But my favorite for cooking is just sweet basil, which has a nice leaf. The little leaf basils are really pretty and attractive, but they're a little bit more difficult to use because the leaves are so tiny, which brings me to thyme, which can be a little difficult to use for that same reason. But really, all you have to do with thyme when it's fresh, I find that scissors are really good for me. I use my little kitchen shears when I'm doing this. You know, you can chop herbs with a knife if you're good at that, but I'm not really good at that. And I just pick a stem and either strip it backwards or just snip it with my scissors. And that works for almost any herb, really. Now, the basil you're going to be seeing tonight, they're going to be using a food processor because you have to really emulsify that. Sweet marjoram is one of my absolute favorites, and it's one that people don't use enough. And it really does have a sweet sort of a different taste, but it's wonderful to use on vegetables, absolutely wonderful. And there isn't a chicken in the world that doesn't taste good with any herb. I mean, you know, anything you do with chicken, I mean, any herb is good on chicken, I really think. I also brought parsley. And I brought the flat leaf, and then I've got some other parsley. There's two kinds of parsley. You'll probably hear people say that the flat leaf Italian is better, has a better flavor. And maybe it does, but I use them both. I like the ruffled curly parsley. I like the way it looks. It looks really pretty in a container. Beautiful, like around the outside of a container. And thyme, again, there's all kinds of thymes. I mean, there's caraway thyme, lemon thyme, English thyme, French thyme, you'll see all kinds of labels. The best thyme is just plain old garden thyme. It's the hardiest. Anytime you get into any of these herbs that are variegated or maybe lemon scented or they've been cultivated, they're not going to be, just remember, they won't be as hardy. It's your native herbs that are going to be the hardiest to grow. Rosemary, of course, Rosemary is one of those herbs that, and there's a lot of varieties of rosemary too, but you probably won't find tons of varieties of rosemary here. Rosemary is not a perennial, and it's not an annual. It would be classified a tender perennial, and what that really means is you can bring that inside in the winter and winter it over, but it's very difficult. It's not, I'm sure you've all had experience with trying to winter over a rosemary plant and thinking you had it made, and then around February it just decides to just leave. And the key to that is it does not like to be in a house. And I tell people they can leave their rosemary out until at least the end of November. You should, it's good for it. It actually can take temperatures in the 30s with no problem whatsoever. Even a light frost does not bother it. And then take it, if you get it in the house, or hopefully maybe in your garage or your basement, somewhere that's cooler than what we like to have, temperature for our bodies, take it right back out again in March, and it'll be fine. Unless we have unless it's below zero or something like that. But it's very, very, it likes to be outside, and that's what keeps it going, okay? And I brought some cilantro. Cilantro is one of those herbs that nobody used. Now all of a sudden everybody's using cilantro. It's a great ethnic herb, and it's really fun to experiment with cilantro because it's got a very, very distinct flavor. And cilantro is the botanical name, the Latin name is coriandrum, which is coriander. The leaf of the cilantro is a totally different taste than the seed pod. So if you grow cilantro, it usually bolts and goes to seed long before the growing season's over. It doesn't grow all summer. It's one of those things like lettuce that you can make successive sowings of, and it easily grows from seed. I would hardly ever buy a cilantro plant, but you can if you want to, but when it goes to seed and the seed dries, it's a little round, pretty seed, then it's coriander. And that would be more of a sweet taste, whereas the cilantro leaf is a savory and a very, very spicy taste. So it's fun to grow cilantro. And my cilantro right now in my container that I planted in the spring is ready to go to seed. So I'm going to sprinkle some more seeds. I saved some. I only put like a third of the seed in there. So you can do that too. So as I said, annuals and perennials both are good. I'm watching my watch here. I think we have somebody from France here. Is that right? I heard that. Of course, anybody been to France? Okay. Anybody dream about going to France? Of course. Well, I'll tell you what. The French have some wonderful ways with herbs, and some of the blends that are probably classic and you've all heard of are French blends. And I thought it might be fun to talk about those because, these are all things that are growing in my garden. So I kind of went through and did that. And one of the first ones I did was this one, which is the herb. Unfortunately, I'm going to be embarrassed by the way I say this, aren't I? Because I don't speak French. A little. I can say bonjour really good. So well that when I walk into a place and say it really good, then they start speaking to French to me and I go, that's all I can say. Anyway, fine herbs, herbs de Provence. Okay, that's what I want to talk about. And that's what's in this little crock here. And that's thyme, oregano, winter savory or summer savory, which I don't have, unfortunately, this year, basil and lavender. And a lot of times you will see these blends dried and, all together for sale. But it's really fun to make. You can also, if you grow your own herbs, what I like to do is make these little bouquets of these herbs. Take, a sprig of each one of these herbs that is a blend, tie it together, dry it, and then you can put it into a jar or a bag or something and have it all winter, and you can just pop out one little bouquet when you need it. And put it into your soup, whatever you're going to put it into, lay it on top of your chicken or put it inside your chicken, and then of course discard it when you're done. So that's the herbes de Provence. And the next one I'm going to talk about is the fine herbs. And this is a real classic mix too. Parsley, chive, chervil, and tarragon. Now, this one is a little, you can add, everything I read about this, so that's the ones to start with, but you can also add marjoram, basil, and dill. So that's a great time for me to say that's what's great about herbs. You can really do whatever you want. Whatever tastes good. There's no rules on what goes with what. Just do what you like. And if you love basil, put it on everything. You'll probably be very happy. I'm that way with chives. Chives are one of the first thing that comes up in my garden in the spring. And I mean, as soon as they're about an inch tall, I'm out there picking them already. I'm cutting them off because I've got to have them on my scrambled eggs. Just have to. So I talked about, bouquet garni. Now that's one you probably all heard of, and that's a little bouquet you tie and put into soups and roasts, and that's really fun to do. And I'm going to show you, and this will be the very same process you would use if you were doing the other ones. Any of these blends that you make little. Now this is, I've got bay, which my bay tree is about this tall. And it's huge, and I went to cut. You would only probably need a couple leaves actually, but I'm going to make a really nice bundle. Bay and parsley and rosemary and thyme. And this is lovage. Anybody grow lovage? Okay. It's really a great herb to grow. It tastes very much like celery. It has a celery flavor to it. And it's a very big plant. I mean, my lovage is probably about 3 feet tall right now. But it's also, I don't know if you can see this, but the stem on this one, this is a small stem, but the stems in the center of this plant are really big. And it makes a great straw for a Bloody Mary. You can leave a little bit of the leaf on to look pretty and then put the stem in your Bloody Mary, and it's very impressive. So this is my little bouquet garni, and what I'm doing with this is I'm tying it, and you always want to make sure that you use like a pure cotton twine when you do this, because you're gonna put this in your food. So don't use like jute twine or ribbon or anything like that. You want to use a nice white cotton twine, and then you can just tie a little loop here, and you've got a spot if you want to. Hang this up to dry, you can, or you can even hang it over a spoon or like a wooden spoon in a pot too. And actually, after this is cooked, of course, it's not going to be pretty anymore, so you would just discard this. But these make wonderful gifts. They really do. And you can make these, as I said, dry them all summer, and they really, the herbs that are in here, every single one of these herbs is going to be really pretty when it's dry. Now, that's not true of all herbs because they don't all stay green when you air dry them, but these will be really pretty when they dry. And you can also dry your herbs, of course, and you've probably seen bouquet garni in a little muslin bag. Have you seen that, where you tie it in a little bag with twine? You can do that, but it's not nearly as pretty as this. So anyway, that's my bouquet garni. So hopefully you'll all go make one. You're gonna pass that around. Oh, sure, absolutely. We could actually pass any of these around if you want to. You want to? Okay, there we go. That's the fine herbs. Okay. Yeah, it's good to touch. And when I'm done, you are more than welcome to come up here and touch away. So, more than welcome. Okay. So, let me think here. Where was I? Doing my blends, right? Okay. Does anybody here have any specific questions on growing herbs that they really need to? Yes.
Your bay tree, where did you purchase that?
The bay tree? She asked where I purchased my bay tree. I've had it for probably about almost 10 years.
Say that, you did outside?
No, I do bring that in. It's not too difficult to grow inside. I mean, it's not like rosemary. It'll winter over as a house plant, and it just keeps. it's you have to keep repotting it. Every time you repot the bay, it responds by getting really big. So I think, but I have seen bay. You don't see it as much as you do other herbs. I know that because it really is a little more difficult. But I have seen it at like Hare, and I've seen it at Greenview. I haven't seen it recently, but there's some great sources out there, mail order sources for herbs too. And you know, with the internet now, I mean, just Google it and you'll probably find all kinds of places that you can order it. And it's a slow growing plant. It doesn't grow really fast, and it is actually a tree, you know. It literally is a tree, so, okay, yes.
Can I find marjoram seeds?
Okay, she asked where she could find marjoram seeds. I usually, pardon me?
Would it be Kelly seeds?
I would say anybody that has a really good selection of seeds. You're not going to find it probably at the discount stores, but I would say Kelly would have it. I think I've seen them there actually. And you know, marjoram, like last year I couldn't find marjoram plants anywhere. And this year, they're everywhere. You know, so I've got, yeah, I mean, I've seen them everywhere. And that's why I've got one right there. Lowe's, these are from Lowe's right here. All of those.
They got marjoram there?
Yes, they do. And now, a word of caution, when you buy herbs initially, a plant, from anywhere, I don't care where it is, if it's a commercially grown herb, it's probably going to has had chemicals, fertilizer, who knows what on it. So just be aware that you don't want to take one of these things home and eat it right away, okay? You want to rinse it off really well, plant it in your garden or container, and give it some time. And I don't use any kinds of chemicals on my herbs. I mean, they don't need it. They don't even need fertilizer. They do quite well without it. And I want to be able to eat them, when, you know, to use them to cook whenever I want. So there's really no reason to whatsoever. So, okay, thank you. Yes?
What's the secret to growing lavender? I've tried it in a pot, and I really got it.
Oh, you know what? I forgot to tell you, lavender is an herbes de Provence. I mean, yeah, Provence and lavender go hand in hand. And that's what makes it so unusual. And I'm going to hold this lavender up because it's really a nice lavender. And I never thought about using lavender with food. You know, lavender to me was perfume or, you know, perfume. But lavender is very, very, very popularly used in France in cooking. So lavender is not easy to grow. It likes a very, very well-drained condition. It is a perennial. And I have grown lavender for 30 years, but I won't even guess how many plants I've grown in 30 years. It's not the same plant, trust me. It's just tricky. And you know, there isn't a great variety of lavender out there, but whenever I see one that looks really good and healthy, I usually bring one home and try it. Right now, my lavender from last year is the best it's ever been. But we had a mild winter. And I think that's the secret to a lot of these herbs. I mean, that grow, you know, perennial in the ground. Our winter was mild. They didn't, you know, they didn't have the hard freezes, and it's good to grow lavender in full sun. It's good to grow lavender near, something very well drained, but near rocks seems to work. I have found that I have mulched around lavender with gravel. I have planted lavender close, like to a stone wall or a sidewalk, and it loves it. Because I think the stone absorbs the heat of the sun and sort of insulates it. So that's one little trick. Other than that, I think you're just kind of, you know, at its mercy. And also with lavender, you know, people sometimes cut it back too soon in the spring too. You know, they go out there and think, oh, this plant is gone, it's not coming back, you know, oh dear, and they cut it all down. But you need to give it a lot of time because it will come back. It does need to be cut back every year, but not. Well, I always watch, because when you look at lavender in the spring, it is a beautiful gray color, but it'll be very gray. But as soon as you start to see little green things coming, then you know it's time to really watch it. And don't touch it for a while until it gets enough green that it can do its photosynthesis thing, you know, and keep going. If you cut it too soon, it won't be able to. So you just have to watch your plant. Most herbs, and I should have said this too, do require full sun. They are sun-loving plants. There are some exceptions, but I would say especially the culinary varieties love the sun.
So if it's grown in a pot, should you put little rocks in with the dirt?
If it's grown in a pot, it probably doesn't make any difference what you do because, you're not going to leave it outside in a pot all winter. And I think it's the winter that, if it's in a pot, it's probably going to have some clay or something around it to insulate it anyway. But it really needs to be in the ground for the, for the winter. You could grow it in a pot during the summer, but then, tuck it into the ground somewhere before winter. Yes?
When you grow herbs in pots, does it matter what type of pot you use?
It's just,
Does it have to be a clay or?
that's a good question. She said when you grow herbs in pots, does it matter? It does matter for any plant, especially this, as we all know, it's so hot right now and so windy. And anything container grown, all the advantages of container grown herbs, of course, is you can move them around, you can put them where you want, you can have them handy, but they dry out really quickly. You have to water them a lot. Clay pots, I love clay pots. I love the whole feel of a clay pot, but they do dry out faster than a plastic pot. So I think the secret to that is growing them in a pot that's big enough that you can, give it lots of soil because the soil, if there's not much soil, it's going to dry out really quickly. Either one is fine, but they have to have drainage.
What about metal?
Metal, I don't think I would grow an herb in metal. I don't think I'd grow anything in a metal pot unless you could slip a plastic or something pot into the metal container, which I've done that. The only thing you can grow in a metal pot that I've tried some things because we had these beautiful iron urns at Luthi at the entrance to the herb garden, and I thought there's got to be an herb that will grow in these things, But they bake in the summer and they freeze in the winter. And I finally found an herb that will grow in them, and it's hen and chicks. You don't want to eat that, at least I don't want to eat that. Yes?
Is there such a thing as garlic chives?
There is such a thing as garlic chives. Has anybody ever grown garlic chives?
I think I have it, that's why I asked.
Has anybody ever regretted growing garlic chives? Yeah. They taste good. They're a stronger flavor, and they have a really pretty flower that blooms in that late summer, early fall that looks nothing like the purple chive. They're an allium, and they have a beautiful white flower, but they are so invasive. It's unbelievable. They self-sow. And I can't tell you the experiences I've had with them. It's not fun. If you want to grow them, that's great, but don't let them go to seed. Make sure you cut off the blossoms before they go to seed, or you'll be digging them up for the rest of your life. Really. Yes?
What can I do with the scented geraniums?
Scented geraniums you can use, most scented geraniums are used in like sweet things as opposed to savory. You can obviously do wonderful things with scented geraniums as far as potpourris and scented waters, but the old-fashioned rose geranium is the best. And what I like to do with it that is the simplest is to use it to flavor like a cake or cupcakes or maybe pound cake. And all you have to do is you line the bottom of your cake pan with either parchment or wax paper, and then you lay the scented geranium leaves on the pan, flatten them out, pour your batter, whether it's a pound cake or a regular. You want to use a very plain cake over the top of them and bake it, and it will taste like rose geranium. And it's really pretty because you flip it, and then you can peel off the paper, and you've got the leaves indented in there. It's really fun. Okay. Or if you use finger bowls at your house. Anybody use finger bowls for dinner? You can float it in the finger bowl too. That's always fun. Yes?
What's the best way to cut basil so that it keeps growing?
The best way to cut basil, or any, especially annual herb, is to cut it regularly, really. You don't want to ever go down too far, but you can probably go down with the basil. I always say don't go below 12 inches on a plant. But the more you cut them, the more they'll respond by fleshing out and growing. And the better books will tell you don't let any of these herbs bloom. Because once they put their energy into the flower, then the energy in the leaf, is less. But sometimes by July, it's pretty hard not to let these things. They want to bloom, and they just do. And the flowers of basil are beautiful as a garnish. And they're beautiful in a salad, too. you can sprinkle them in a salad, just like chives are gorgeous in a salad.
Can you just take a sprig? I was told you to take a sprig and just plant it in the dirt without having to do
A sprig of,
basil, and it will grow.
I've never tried that. She wanted to know about taking a sprig of basil and putting it in the dirt if it would root. I've never tried that. I can't speak to that, I'm sorry. I mean, I would try it. I would try anything. If you heard that, I'd try it. Let me know.
I read it.
Yeah. Well, you never know what you're going to read online, unfortunately. You know, the nice thing about online information on plants and herbs and all these things is there's a lot of it out there, but you really have to be careful what you believe, too. I mean, you have to be real discerning about that, too. So I like my herb books. They're my, you know, I always go back to my old herb books. Yes?
Can you eat the flower of the chives?
She asked if you could eat the flower of the chive. Yes, you can. Any edible herb, and I'm talking about a very small, I mean, you know, I don't want to get into some of the other ones, but the ones that are familiar to it, you can eat the blossom of any of these, you know, as well as the leaf, if you want to. It's fun to put blossoms on top of a salad if you have people that have not, you know, been exposed to that, and just see what they do. They'll look at it and go, oh, that's really pretty. And then they'll go, but can I eat that? Like, yes. That's why it's on there. Okay, yes?
Of the herbs we're talking about, are there any parts of the above ground plant that we shouldn't eat?
She asked if there's any parts of the above ground plant that you should not eat of the ones we're talking about. No, not that I know of, no. The only thing I would say is some of these herbs that have woody stems, you know, like sage is a very woody herb. What else in here? Oregano, rosemary are woody herbs. You know, it wouldn't hurt you, but they aren't very palatable. They aren't very palatable. So, yes.
You probably already answered this, but are there any herbs that you can grow indoors during the winter time?
Are there any herbs you can grow indoors in the winter? You can actually try pretty much any of these indoors if you have the right conditions, yeah. Probably the perennials aren't as easy because they really like to go dormant. But the thing, if you want to grow herbs indoors in the winter, is I would play around with seeds, growing them from seeds, because you know you can grow almost any of them from seeds inside. You just have to have a lot of good light. Yeah, a lot of good light. Yes.
How about the soil? Do you have a favorite soil that you use?
A soil mix, you mean? Like for container herbs? You know, I've tried a lot of them. I actually like to use a mixture. You know, the potting soil that I buy sometimes I find is a little difficult to deal with. It's so light and it floats and I don't know. There's a lot of, I like to mix that with my garden soil. You know, like half and half. And then I get a little bit better heavy texture to it, which the herbs seem to like. And if you have a lot of clay in your soil, you want to add sand to it because that gives them drainage too. Okay. Yes?
A really good potting soil is a company called ProMix, organic potting soil. They have it over at Menards. It's $4 and it's one of like the top growers' choice indoors for
Oh.
houses and everything.
Thank you. That's ProMix,
Made by ProMix.
and it's organic potting soil.
Yeah.
Okay. Got that? Great. Awesome. And it's at Menards, you said?
Yeah, Menards is the only local place that has it.
Oh, that's the only local place that has it. So, oh, good. I would like to try that because I'm not happy with with the Miracle Grow and the stuff I've been buying. You know, it's got stuff in it, and I'm not happy with it.
It's in like 3 days in your plants.
Oh my, I like that. Fast results, right? Well, before I wrap this up, and I'm going to hang around a little bit, so if there's something that comes up and you need to ask me, you know, feel free, but I can't take up this whole evening. But I just want to mention really quick, this is just a commercial for me. We're having, I used to have herb festivals in my garden and in my yard many years ago. And this year I had a French market in, well, actually the very first part of June. And it was such fun that we're going to do it again in September. And it's very small and it's very, very fun. And we had lots of people, not just me. We had all kinds of vendors and we had really, really the real deal, you know, baguettes, croissants. We had a crepe maker and all kinds of, you know, antiques and fun stuff. So if anybody's interested, it's September 22nd. And I've got little cards up here that I would be happy to give you if you want one to remind you. And I thank you very much. It's just been great. And there's more good stuff coming. So thank you so much.
thank you to Jan. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Dr. Young and I are going to do our little demonstration on basil pesto, but before I forget, Tina, our office manager, will kill me if I forget to announce. June 30th, we are having the Red Cross is coming with their blood mobile to our parking lot, and we're going to have a blood drive. And any of you are welcome to come. We would so appreciate if anyone would like to donate. If anyone comes and donates, you can come to our next cooking class without having to pay. So just bring a little note saying that you gave blood, or we'll remember you, and then you can come. But we really, truly appreciate it. We're trying to get the word out. So it is from, what time is it from, Tina? 9 or 8? It's the 30th. I think it's 9 to 1, 9 to 12, Saturday the 30th of June. Okay. So. And then we're going to steal your mic if you don't mind, but if you don't want to undo while you're. So the two recipes that we are going to, or that we've included in for the class tonight, and you have actually, we're going to pass out the bags that have the food in them, but we wanted to showcase two recipes. One is quinoa tabbouleh, and for those of you who are familiar with Mediterranean food, tabbouleh is an amazing salad that's traditionally made with cracked wheat. But we tried to keep, to stay cognizant of those patients that need to be gluten-free, so we decided to go with quinoa tonight. And quinoa has a lot more protein than cracked wheat. It has a different flavor, it's a nuttier flavor. So we wanted to go with that. So the recipe is quinoa tabbouleh. We're not gonna show you how to make quinoa tabbouleh, but we'll talk about it. You cannot make an easier salad than tabbouleh. I mean, I grew up with my mom making tabbouleh, so I can do it in my sleep. But really, honestly, all tabbouleh is the hardest part is just chopping all of the vegetables and herbs that go into the tabbouleh. But once you boil or once you cook your quinoa, and the recipe is in there, you're basically going to boil that, and then when it's done, you're going to lay it out on a cookie sheet to dry, because the key is for tabbouleh is that you want the quinoa or your wheat, whichever you decide to use, to be as dry as possible, because you don't want a soggy tabbouleh. That's the number one rule. So after you cook your quinoa, you're going to boil it just like rice. Then lay it out on a cookie sheet to dry, and it really and to cool. And it really only takes about 10 or 15 minutes to cool and to dry off. So that's one of the keys that I found in making this that makes all the difference in the world. And then while you're cooking your quinoa, you're basically just going to then start chopping all of the other ingredients that you need to have for this dish. So you're going to chop your cucumber, so you peel and chop and dice your cucumber into very small pieces. You're going to then chop your tomatoes. And another trick is if you're going to use either the cherry tomatoes or the grape tomatoes or big tomatoes, just take the seeds out too while you're doing it, because if you take the seeds out, you're getting rid of a lot of that excess moisture, because again, your tabbouleh can get soggier than what you realize. So if you just take the seeds out, you'll still get all the beauty and the nutrients of the tomato, but without the extra liquid from the seeds. You're going to chop your parsley and your mint and your green onions, and you're also going to chop romaine lettuce, and all of that is going to give your salad a lot of crunch and beautiful color. And the key with tabbouleh also is lots of lemon juice and garlic and salt and pepper. So really, while you're cooking your quinoa, you're going to be chopping all your vegetables, and then really you just throw it all into one bowl and toss, and it couldn't be any easier. If you like a lot of mint, just put extra mint. Another really nice trick for tabbouleh, you can you're the captain of your own ship here. Use lemon mint. It's beautiful. That adds another really neat kind of earthy taste to it, and gives that extra kick with the lemony flavor of the mint. So we're not going to again show you how to make that dish, but the recipe is in your bag, and if you have questions, just ask.
Does it matter which type of quinoa that you use?
No, you can use just regular quinoa. You can use.
Like the red?
Yeah, you can use red. I've made it. Yeah.
What's the difference in the color as far as the taste?
Not really nothing. You can use red. You can use tricolor, you can use just regular earth color, brown.
And there's no
Yeah,
difference in, what about nutrition, is it all?
not anything significant. No, not anything significant, although Brent, yeah.
You're just gonna get different antioxidants.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just that, yeah, you're gonna get a little bit different of antioxidant mix, but in the end, it's not,
Okay,
nothing all that significant.
okay.
Yeah, a lot of it is just the visual appeal that you like, whatever, you know, kind of, whatever talks to you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I've had a problem with the quinoa that I buy in bulk.
yes,
It seems to, even though I rinsed it very well, it seems to have like dirt. It seems like when you eat it, you know, as if it had a little rocks or something, crunch, yeah.
and you're rinsing it, well, like 2 or 3 times rinsing it in your wire.
You know, rub it.
I haven't had that. Has anybody else noticed that with quinoa, noticing I mean, I know it has a resin if you don't rinse it, so you really want to try to get that off because that can change the flavor of it, but I've not had a problem with having a gritty texture to it. Melissa? Yeah, where are you getting it from? Is it in bulk?
You got a lot
Brett,
of
what's up?
bulk stuff. All that bulk stuff, you can get rocks and all that in there because it's,
Yeah.
when they get it in a big bag. Because I found like rocks in almonds and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
However, things get processed, basically you're gonna get some rocks in there. So you just gotta make sure you clean everything.
So
out.
rinse it well.
Very well.
Very well, exactly. But we are going to demonstrate the vegan basil pesto. And so how many of you guys have made pesto before? Oh, good, lots of people. Pesto, I find, and Dr. Young can give you her rendition, I love pesto because I find just a multitude of uses for it. I use it a lot of times instead of pizza sauce, tomato sauce, so I use it on just flatbread when making our own homemade pizzas. It's wonderful over fish. It's you can use it with vegetables. It's great as in a caprese salad. If you use fresh tomatoes and mozzarella, you can drizzle your pesto. So there's, I think, a wonderful amount of things that you can do with pesto, and you can make basil pesto. You can make mint pesto. In fact, we were just talking.
You can also use different types of nuts. You don't just have to use pine nuts, but pistachios, walnuts, and it changes the flavor with the herbs and the nuts. And I put it over pasta. Tonight, actually, I'm going home and making a lentil soup with just mint, basil, or actually mint and pistachios, and drizzling that over the lentil soup. So there's so much that you can do with it.
Yeah, excellent.
Absolutely.
It's wonderful over pasta
Yes.
as well. So in your bags, we've given you a little jar of the pesto, and pesto goes a long way. It's got a very pungent flavor, so you don't need a lot. And so a lot of times if I'm going to use it with pasta, I will add more olive oil to thin it out. So add more extra virgin olive oil, so that way when you're tossing your pasta and your fresh veggies, a little bit goes a long way.
There's a question about how long I store my pesto and how I store it. And I just put it in a small container, because usually I make small batches, around this size. This is a perfect size container in the refrigerator. Some people put like just a film of plastic wrap over the top, so that may make it last a little bit longer. And I only keep it for a few days. I think the taste is better fresh. And in the fall, I'll actually make large batches of pesto, freeze them in ice cube trays until they're frozen, put them in plastic bags, and I can have pesto on anything I want all winter long. So.
I'm here for you.
Very good. Okay. So we're going to be making pesto, and we're going to start with, for this recipe, 5 to 6 cups of fresh basil leaves.
Okay, you have to be smarter than the Vitamix.
I was starting on that before you came, and it was smarter than me.
There we go.
Beautiful.
Have to be smarter than the blender to
All
start
right.
with.
So actually, let's just
Some
make.
days that's not possible.
So we roughly tear the basil leaves or whatever herb you're using. And we're going to combine the herb, which tonight is basil, with the nuts, which we're using pinoli nuts or pine nuts tonight, the garlic, and the salt and pepper. Here's our garlic. And we're using for this 10 cloves of garlic. So very helpful, but
Very
you
healthy.
certainly can adjust the amount of garlic to your tastes. And so throw all the garlic in.
All right. Garlic is antimicrobial, so you will not get a cold for a long time.
Absolutely.
With that much garlic.
But you do want to share at home that everyone has the pesto, so everyone smells like garlic, okay?
Is all this going in?
Yes,
Okay.
and so,
All right, so this is all of our basil.
yes.
You know what? You do not have to, because a lot of times with traditional pestos, it'll call for like raw cashews or raw almonds. So you don't have to roast them. If you want a nuttier, earthier flavor, you surely can, but you don't have to.
And with a good food processor or one of these wonderful blenders, you don't need to, you can put it all in and blend it together at one
I'm gonna
time.
get a little olive oil
Yeah.
for the bottom, just so we.
Absolutely. And you definitely can vary. I mean, it's nice to follow your recipes when you're new to them, but you can then start to vary depending on your tastes, how much in the way of the nuts or the garlic or the herbs that you like. Perfect. Then we're going to do a salt and pepper to taste. And we will blend that and then put the lemon juice and any red pepper in. Perfect. It smells good already. We haven't even
Yes.
blended it.
And this is our lemon juice.
Okay. Perfect.
I don't know how much olive oil calls for. I just need a little.
Let's see, it's about a quarter cup. Yes. And then we blend it up and we can add more if we need it. It's a test.
It's a test.
It always helps to pulse it, and then you can always add more olive oil to the consistency that you like. And every device just blends at a different time.
Man, it smells wonderful.
Smells so good.
Love pesto. Yeah, so really you can make it any consistency that you want. And like I said, I use it a little thinner when I'm using it for pastas or to drizzle over tomatoes. But that's really all that it takes to make pesto. And like I said, you can make it with cashews, you can make it with almonds, you can make it with mint. It doesn't have to be basil. You can even make cilantro pesto. I mean, you can play with it and it smells heavenly. And then just imagine drizzling that over whatever you want to eat it on.
Yeah, chicken, meats, pasta, vegetables, everything.
So you guys will have to tell us the next cooking class what you ate your pesto on.
Yes.
Give us ideas. If you guys have questions about anything in terms of herbs, like how Dr. Young and I use herbs in our practice, if you have an ailment, you think, is there an herb for this or that? I mean, part of why we wanted to keep it somewhat casual tonight too is just to be able to take your questions too and just see how we use herbs as physicians. So feel free to ask away.
I don't know if well, I guess it kind of is herbs. the therapeutic grade essential oils, are you, because some of those, they have, you know, the ginger and all that, and they say you can use some in cooking.
I don't use as much of the, essential oils that you might use topically as well as internally. But there's certain things like thyme oil, sage oil, oregano oil that I use for gastrointestinal infections or respiratory infections that are very powerful and wonderful.
And you apply it topically?
Actually, those you take internally in capsules or tinctures, but some people do use essential oils that they either put on the skin or take internally. I don't use those really very much.
And how long do those stay fresh, and how do you know, like in the common person, or should you go to someone who works with it? You know, because you can just buy that at a store.
Sure. I think you do need to be careful. I think herbs are powerful, and certainly, for basic, upper respiratory infections, oregano oil is something I think you could try. But for, someone who comes to me with more chronic infections or serious infections, then I think it's important to really have, work with a provider who knows what they're doing. And you can use the combinations of the oils for, a therapeutic period of time, which could be several weeks, actually, to several months.
Thank you.
Are there tinctures that you would recommend just for general well-being, for good health, or for ailments only?
I don't use a lot of tinctures so much, I have to say. I tend to, for most people, the capsules or, the gel caps are easier. But I do think that some of the herbs, like especially oregano oil, comes in tincture, and I think that's a fine way to consume it.
Yeah, I can't think of any that I would use for general well-being. When I think of using herbs, I think of them more just like I would use a prescription medication. So if someone has osteoarthritis, or if someone has if we're trying to deal with irritable bowel type symptoms, and we're going to use peppermint oil. So I mean, I think of them more in certain situations as opposed to just for general well-being. Yeah.
With the recipes that you gave us
Yeah.
tonight, do you know the caloric or fat content to each of these?
Probably not. I mean, I can look and see, but I know that, very minimal. I mean, really the only fat that you're going to get in here is your olive oil, which is absolutely wonderful, healthy type of fat. And then with the quinoa tabbouleh, again, it's just your olive oil that you're going to have as a fat. It's healthy protein. So these are both very anti-inflammatory, very Mediterranean type recipes. So I don't know the caloric content on either one of these, but I wouldn't worry about it because you can eat a lot of them and really not necessarily have to worry.
I think, too, with the pesto, it's so rich, you don't need a lot. So you're getting all the benefits without the downside.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sure.
Good question. Other questions? We'll pass this around. You guys we'll finish blending it up. But take this off. As always, we have, we're going to pass out the bags and stuff, and we have our giveaways and things like that to do. And like I said, we're going to be here, so just ask any questions that you may have. Yeah, so if you guys want to start passing out as we finish this, that would be great. What I use on my, for my... Oh yeah, this. This is, do you read?
Is it wonderful?
1 year. Who was it? Yay!
The new becoming vegetarian book.
Yes. Yeah, thank you guys
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you.